Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort, so you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about how you can help end world divorce. My guest, Magenta, was still a newlywed when she started wondering what had happened to the wonderful guy she married. Instead of talking to her, texting her, and video chatting, he just was not paying attention to her, and she didn't know why. He also refused to join their finances, even though she did all the paperwork for him at the bank, and all he had to do was sign it. But today, he handles all the money and bills and greets her with a big hug and kiss every day when he comes home. What happened? She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. And then I'll be giving out the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award, which offers an explanation for why men stop being romantic that is both dopey and offensive. All that is coming up. But first, let's talk about how you can help end world divorce. Ending world divorce may sound to you like one very tall order. It might seem like something so big and overwhelming that you can't imagine how it could happen, never mind how you could contribute to such a lofty goal. After all, relationships are falling apart everywhere you look, and it seems so normal, so business as usual to hear about people you know or celebrities in the media tragically calling it quits. But what if it was the other way? What if divorce was exceptional and staying married your whole life was the norm? What if that's what all the cool kids around you were doing? What if everyone was staying married and talking about how to make their marriage playful and passionate instead of whether to separate or call a divorce attorney? What if every time you complained about your marriage to your friends or your siblings, they listened and empathized and then asked you to examine what it was about you that was stopping you from having what you wanted in your marriage? What if they acknowledged you for looking for how you could clean up your side of the street and celebrated when you were making yourself happy so you could have a happy marriage? What if the women in your circle shared their experience about how to successfully create a playful, passionate relationship? It sounds like a wonderful world, right? Well, there is a small corner of the world that's like that. It's the Laura Doyle Connect campus. That's the kind of community our coaches and our coach trainees and our students enjoy. And that's why you listen to this podcast, I bet, because you also think marriage is important and you want to end world divorce, starting with making your own marriage last, which is the very best place to start. We're celebrating 20 years of empowering women to be ridiculously happy wives this year. And one of the things it took me a long time to figure out was how to have this kind of community, which it turns out is essential for my marriage to thrive. Every time I hear myself sharing what I've learned, it reinforces and reminds and reinvigorates me to be my best self so I can have the best marriage. That's how I started doing this work to begin with, because I wanted to have some structure and accountability to fix my own marriage. So I made my friends start doing it with me. Having a community is a great way to be able to pay forward to another woman what you've learned and what you now know about how to have a lasting marriage. Because what I learned is that the advanced self-help department is also known as the help others department. So now you know my secret, that I'm here paying it forward, what I've learned, to help myself, to keep my marriage shiny. Now I have tens of thousands of friends doing this with me. And that means we are so much closer to ending world divorce. But how can you get the advanced self-help of paying forward what you've learned on this podcast, or from the Empowered Wife book, or from reading my blogs and experimenting in your own marriage? and what might be possible for your marriage if you started sharing what you know with other women who are hurting in their marriages. What kinds of breakthroughs could you have if you were paying forward what you've learned? Because that's how I got my breakthrough. And that's how so many women on our campus get their breakthroughs. Same goes for you. So let's talk about 3 ways you can help end world divorce and at the same time get advanced self-help for your own marriage. Option number 1 for how you can personally end world divorce. And you might be already doing this, I know. In fact, a lot of you are doing this because I hear about it all the time. And I want to thank you. What I mean is that one of the easiest ways to pay forward what you've learned and expand your own community of like-minded women is to recommend the Empowered Wife podcast to someone you know who seems like she might be struggling in her marriage. You can share what it's done for you or why you like it. If you got insight and value from the book, The Empowered Wife, you could recommend that. If you read the blogs on lauradoyle.org, if you've got value from those, just giving someone that information might help her become empowered. That's a tremendous contribution to ending world divorce. Or if that feels too scary or too delicate to share about, what about writing an anonymous review of the Empowered Wife podcast on iTunes or writing a review of the Empowered Wife book on Amazon? You may never meet the woman that you help that way, but what if your review is the one that resonates with her and has her take a chance on listening to a podcast or reading a book that leads her to saving her family? Plus, writing a review is one way of telling your own story, which is a powerful way to shape your own future into the one you want to experience. Option number 2, another way to pay forward what you've learned about how to have a lasting marriage and therefore help it stick and take root is by joining one of my programs. In every program on our campus, you'll have the opportunity to get support from the coaches who run the groups. Yes, but you'll also have the chance to get advanced self-help by supporting other women. That's true in the Ridiculously Happy Wife group coaching program. That's true in our Diamond Private Coaching program. And it's especially true in relationship coach training and when you're part of the coaching body. The communities in those programs are special because the women in them are highly committed. They're in the programs because marriage is a priority to them. They believe that lasting marriages are important. And they're right. Wherever you are in your marriage journey, even if things seem very dark for you right now, you have wisdom to share. You have empathy and virtual hugs to give and cheering to offer for someone else's wins, which can start to feel like your own wins when you're part of our special groups. Option number 3 is the ultimate way to end world divorce, and that is by becoming a certified Laura Doyle relationship coach, which starts with enrolling in relationship coach training. It's a year-long course where you're part of a small group of women who practice the 6 intimacy skills together at the highest level with the coaches and me. You also master our unique coaching methodology where you learn to create emotional safety and have conversations with women who are hurting and scared about their marriages that create the possibility for breakthroughs and outright miracles. Being a relationship coach and an expert on the 6 intimacy skills is the best job in the world for what it does for my marriage and how it helps me to be my best self. It also feels incredibly purposeful and meaningful to support women in fixing their families. To end world divorce, we need coaches in every corner of the world. So, my question for you is, are you with me on the mission to end world divorce? Are you in? How will you pay forward what you've learned so that you can take your own marriage to the next level Will you recommend or review a book or a podcast or join a program or train to become a world-class relationship coach? And if you've already been doing those things, and I know thousands of you have been, then I want to tell you how happy I am that we're on this mission together. Thank you. I couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest, Magenta, was still a newlywed when she started wondering what had happened to the wonderful guy she married. Instead of talking to her or paying attention to her and texting her and video chatting, he just was not paying attention to her. And she didn't know why. He also refused to join their finances, even though she did all the paperwork for him at the bank and all he had to do was sign it. But today, he handles all the money and bills and greets her with a big hug and kiss every day when he comes home. What happened? Well, she's going to tell us what she did differently so you can do that too and get a much better response. Magenta, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thanks, Laura. I'm really excited.
So take us back to the beginning of when the problem started. What were things like in the bad old days in your marriage?
Well, we got married when I was really young. I'm just 22 now. So we got married when I was 20 and we were both in college. And I don't know, we were kind of Twitter-pated in the beginning and, happily married. And then a couple months went by and we were in an area where there was a lot of other married couples that were just newly married. And I looked around one day and we had gotten in a fight to the event that we were going. And when we got there, I just looked around at all these other couples and everybody looked so depressed and sad. And it was crazy. Everybody had only been married about 1 or 2 years. And we'd been married a couple months at that time. And it was just everybody looked sad and lonely. And I knew I didn't want that. And even though we got in a fight on the way over, I just knew I didn't want to be headed down the road we were going. And my mom actually had given me your book, The Empowered Wife, a couple months after I got married. And, at that time, I wasn't really ready for it. I was just, I started it and I was like, oh, what is self-care? No. And so I kind of stopped reading the book. I didn't really need it at that time because we were still pretty Twitter-pated. But a couple months down the road, we started getting into arguments and just not communicating very well. And we were both in school, really busy. And then I got pregnant pretty soon after we got married. And so, I was sick and just lonely and working, and our schedules didn't really match up very often. And I just noticed just feeling lonely and not getting the kind of attention that we had when we were dating. And, we would get together every day. And if we couldn't, we'd video call and, all these sweet little things you do when you're dating. And it didn't really happen as much once we were married. The communication kind of fell off the wayside a little bit.
Yeah. Did you think, oh, he's changed. He's different than he was when we were dating?
A little bit. Yeah. I don't know. He's a very focused person. And I could tell, when he's doing something, he's very into it and very focused on it. And he just was not focusing on me, which I think was really hard.
That's why we get married, right? It's why we all want to be married, is to have that companionship and feel special and feel desired. So,
Yes.
so it sounds like that had gone missing. So, what kinds of things were going on? So it sounds like you were in some pain about what else, what was missing in your marriage.
Yeah. And it was hurtful, I started noticing things, like I brought a car to our marriage and he would never offer to drive me. I was like, oh, he's not being sweet and a gentleman. Like he's not offering to drive me places. And maybe that was more my fault. I didn't let him drive, but I just noticed little things, like expectations that I had that he wasn't meeting and just not feeling as adored as I wanted.
Yeah. What else? What other kinds of things was he not doing that you thought he should be doing?
Well, like you mentioned, he didn't want to join our finances for a long time. He had a separate bank account and credit card, and I didn't really have access to any of that either, which was kind of hurtful. And I felt like my bank was better and he should join mine. And he just had no desire to do any of it, even though I printed everything out, like you said, and I told him where to sign. And so that was pretty hurtful. And then I asked him multiple times to just text me throughout the day, like, how are you doing? Or I miss you, or anything like that. Just, even a text, it didn't have to be a call. But that wasn't really happening as much. And I would have to pick him up from school a lot of the time because we just had one car, and he would be late, even though I would tell him I was there, and he would not get there on time, which made me frustrated. And I just didn't feel like he really valued my time or my efforts to help him. I would make his lunch. I would, help him with what to wear. I would, help him like with family and events and things. And I just didn't feel like I was getting the appreciation or, the validation for what I was doing.
Yeah, because you were doing a lot, sounds like.
Yeah.
And you were pregnant pretty quick there too. So that's tiring also, right? You're making a life. So it takes something. Yeah. So what was the atmosphere like between you and your home?
It got pretty tense. At the beginning of our marriage, I would run to the door and greet him when he got home. And, as the months went by, I kind of stopped doing that. It was more of a, oh, hello, you're home kind of thing. And he would go straight to his homework or working and things. And I had things to do too. So it was more of I acknowledge that you're home, but that was it. So not a lot of connection or intimacy as the months went by. So
yeah, some of that electricity from when you first fall in love was diminished, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is that when you remembered, oh yeah, that book my mom wanted me to read. Is that what
Yes.
happened next? Yeah.
Yes. So my mom and my sisters had kind of started a group chat to, get just a group system going, some support. And they had been chatting on that group for a while, and I hadn't really jumped on. I just noticed how well their marriages were going, and I was like, oh, I don't fit into this group. And I hadn't really read the book yet, and so I didn't feel like I fit in for a long time. But I finally jumped into the group, and I was kind of scared to do it, even though it was my sisters. But I jumped into the group and I started reading the book. And self-care was probably the hardest thing for me. The other skills were as well, but I think self-care was why I probably stopped reading it, because I just have a hard time, taking care of myself and recognizing when I'm not doing well. And just the fact that it's so important to take care of myself. I hadn't really done that for a lot of years, being a student, a newlywed, being pregnant, doing all these roles and things. My self-care kind of fell and I was not very good at it. So I finally started reading a book, got some ideas for self-care, just how to make myself happier. And I did notice things were changing a little bit, not so much with that, but I started being less controlling as well. I would basically starve my husband. I didn't think he needed to eat as much as he was eating before we got married. And so I would pack his lunch, and it was not enough. I realize now. So I was basically starving him, and I stopped telling him what to wear. I love the phrase that you said, just whatever you think. That was probably the first thing that I started using. Just whatever you think, kind of just letting him be his own person.
How did
And
he respond to that when you?
it was weird at first. We do have quite an age gap. He's about 10 years older than me. And I guess I never realized before that he was a responsible adult and could take care of himself. When we got married, I thought I needed to do all these things for him that he had been perfectly fine doing before we met, but I took over doing those things for him. So I kind of just gave those things back, just started saying whatever you think. And it was really hard at first because I do struggle with expectations. And when he would come out of the closet wearing something awful, I couldn't say anything. And so he did think it was weird at first. And he would look at me strangely. He was like, "What did you say?" I was like, "Whatever you think." And he was like, "Okay." And just would go on with it. But it took a while, I think, for me to get used to saying it and just letting go of the control of being on time, being presentable in what I thought presentable looked like.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, I kind of felt like, well, people are going to judge me if my husband's dressed funny.
Yes.
Right. So I wanted to have a say. So it sounds like you had a similar.
I did. Yes. I wanted people to look at us and just be like, "Oh, what a cute couple," like,
Yeah, they're so stylish or whatever. Yeah. So put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all want that. So, yeah. So what made you decide that it would be better to say whatever you think than to tell him? Like you said, if he's wearing something awful, what made you decide to?
I just decided that I didn't have room in my life to worry about that kind of stuff. Throughout my life, I've kind of worried a lot about different things, about myself, my life. And I just didn't have the space to worry about him anymore. And once I started saying that, I didn't know how it would work. I didn't know if it would actually make a difference. But I started saying that, and I noticed how much more peaceful I felt. Like, even if he wasn't wearing the things I wanted, even if he wasn't home on time, or even if, our finances weren't together, I just stopped worrying about it. And I had so much more space to do those things that I wanted to do. Like, I know I had a hard time taking care of myself. But that was probably because I was worrying so much about him that I didn't have the time to worry about myself and what I needed and what would make me happy. So I noticed a lot more peace just within myself when I just let go of all of that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Love that. And then what about this issue of driving around? You were the main driver, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know why I had a weird idea that I was the only one that could drive, even though he was older and had been driving a lot longer than me. But I just decided one day, I had a chat with my mom, and she said, "Just try it. You just let him drive. Like, just give him the keys once." It's like, that's really scary. I've been driving our whole marriage, and we've just been used to that. And it's like, okay. So one day I just decided to try it. I was like, just give him the keys. And so we were going out that day, and I just handed in the keys. I was like, "Here, I want you to drive. Like, I'd love if you would drive." And he looked at me and he was like, "I don't want to drive." And I was like, "No, I'd really love it. I'd really love it if you would drive today." And he did. And it was very strange. And for the first few weeks, I had to catch myself. I would tell him, like, "Slow down," or like, "The turn is right here," and still be kind of controlling, backseat driver. So I did have to work on that, but he was driving. So that was a step in the right direction. And we did get more used to it, and he started driving more. And even if I had the keys, I would just give it to him, and I would just go get in the passenger side. Even if he didn't want to drive, I would just sit in the other side. And So we've gotten a lot more used to it. And now he's the only one that drives and he loves taking me places and he's so sweet about it. And he'll even now open my door for me. And it's so cute now. So
Oh, that's so sweet. So now you get to be kind of like the VIP and he's the chauffeur, it sounds
yeah.
like. And
Yeah.
and so and it was scary at first. Is it still scary sometimes to be the
It is
passenger?
still scary. Yeah. I still have to just in my head, I'm pretty good now about not voicing my opinions, not telling him slow down or hey, the speed limit's only 45 here. I'm pretty good at keeping those thoughts to myself. And I mean, just I just think to myself now, like, what's the worst that could happen? Like if he was going too fast, he would get a ticket and he would have to take responsibility for that because he was going too fast. So I kind of have given the responsibility over to him a lot more, which is so relieving because I just think that I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? And it's normally not that bad.
Yeah. And he would get what I hear you saying is he would have life consequences instead of wife consequences
Yes.
as you're
Yeah.
okay. I love it. So what else did you
Yeah.
start doing differently than what you had been doing?
Probably one of the other hardest things we had was our communication issues. He still was busy, in school and everything. And then when he graduated, we actually moved in with my parents and he started a different job and things. And we still had those communication problems. And it was still hard for me, like if he didn't talk to me or text me throughout the day. But I did get better at just taking care of myself and being happy. And when he was home, I made sure that I was available for him to talk to me if he wanted to. Like whenever he wanted to have a conversation or talk about something, I was always there. Like I wanted to be a part of his life and I wanted him to know that I was invested in what he was thinking. And so probably one of the hardest phrases that you have is the "I hear you" phrase. It just tasted like poison in my mouth when I would try to say it at first. I was just like, oh, this is gross in my mouth. I can't even voice it. And I remember the first time I used it, I was like, I hear you, and kind of like a question. And he just kept on talking, which was fine. And since then, I've been using it a lot more. And he talks so much now. He actually like wants to tell me about his day. And he's in grad school now. And so he wants to tell me about what he's studying. He wants to tell me about his professors, all these things. And he talks so much now. Sometimes I want him to stop talking. So it's a really nice change. And he does text me sometimes just to say I love you or I miss you. And he's just a lot better about being receptive to me as well. And recently he's actually started using I hear you with me. I'll be talking and he says, I hear you. And so it's been a fun new dynamic, our new communication skills.
I love it. What would you have said in the past instead of saying I hear you?
A lot of suggestions. I would give him a lot of suggestions and try to be kind of controlling, or why didn't you say this? Or you should have said that, or this is what I would do. And I was very controlling. And I had an opinion about pretty much everything.
Well, I can relate to you so much. And it's so sweet. Your accountability is so adorable. It sounds like you really got a new perspective. Like you really see things through new glasses from what you
Yes,
saw before.
I do. Yeah. And it's really nice. Just having the support group with my sisters and my mom and everything. And it's just so important, I think, to have that group of people. And now, if my husband makes me angry or something, I'll just call my mom right when he leaves the house almost and just, I need to talk about this. And then it just makes it so much easier to think through it and just have that nice support group. I think that's really important because I tried to do it with some of my friends and give some of my newlywed friends the book. And I don't think any of them were really in the place to talk about this or think about themselves in that way. And I noticed when I would talk to people that, maybe hadn't read the book or didn't have the skills, when I got off the phone, I would just feel worse, or maybe they would not say good things about my husband, or like, oh yeah, you are so right to be upset about that, or something. But it's so much different when I talk to people who really understand and value the skills, because they give me actual good feedback, and they don't make me seem so great. It's like I have faults too, and I have ways to grow as well.
Oh, it sounds like you're very open to looking at what you're bringing to the party so that you can create a better outcome. And you have a special advantage with your mom. We keep hearing about your mom, and she
Mm-hmm.
actually has trained with me to be a coach. Right. So
Yes.
it's a kind of that's a great thing to have you're a second generation empowered
Mm-hmm.
wife, because
Yeah.
your mom went through her own journey, and
Yeah.
it can really support you, it sounds like. And it sounds like all your sisters are on board as well.
Yeah. All the married ones so far have been started reading the book and trying to do all the skills and everything. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to be born into an empowered wife family.
It
Not
is.
everyone
It's
has
really
that.
nice.
That is,
I get my own
but
coaching calls.
what's that?
I get my own coaching calls.
Yes,
Yeah.
you do. Yes, you do. No, so I love this because, and I love the distinction you're making, right? When you might talk to a friend and end up feeling a little bit worse, maybe not so empowered, or
Hmm.
like that there's criticism of your husband. There's not so much a stand for your greatness,
Yes.
as with the other, your relatives who are all doing, using the intimacy skills and the other aspects of the connection framework. So I love that.
Yeah.
So what is your relationship like now?
It's lovely. Where you get around our friends and our family now, and it's like we're newlyweds again. They're almost grossed out by us. He just, uh, like my husband, he just wants to spend time with me all the time. He's always saying, I miss you and I want to be with you. And he's always giving me cuddles and kisses. And when he gets home, I run to the door again, just like when we were newlyweds. And he just loves that so much. He just lights up when he comes in the door because he knows I'm gonna be there. And and he just loves being with our family, and he takes care of our son so well. I know in the beginning I would be controlling about that too, and tell him, how to take care of the baby and what to do, how to be a dad. But I just relinquished that control as well, and just he's going to learn, and he does so well. He loves being with our son and with me, and it's so nice. Our home is so peaceful. It's a safe place for all of us to be now, and we don't really fight ever or have disagreements or anything, and it's just so nice. One of the other, probably my favorite thing happened a couple weeks ago. I was reading a romance book. That was one of my self care things for the day. I love romances. And my husband asked me, he was like, why do you read all these romance books? Do you feel like you're not getting enough romance in your life? And I said, no, I just read them because I actually need more drama in my life because our marriage is so great. And he said, he knows I love Hallmark movies. And he said, that's why I don't like watching Hallmark movies, because my life is a Hallmark movie and I need some more spice in my life than that. And it just made me so happy that he said that, because I love those movies, but they are very cheesy, and
Yeah.
nothing ever goes wrong in those movies. And he felt like that was his life, and that was just such a testament to me that I was doing the right thing and really on the right track.
Yeah. It's really him acknowledging you as a wife, that he loves what you're bringing to the
Yeah.
marriage, and he feels really connected to you, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. We're very connected now, and we even have time to be silly, like we even like one of the funniest things is we actually meow at each other. We make little sounds and we are just silly and so comfortable and connected, and it's just this is a really nice place to be. And I still mess up, we're growing and learning, I mean, we've only been married 2 years now, so we still have lots of room to grow, but I feel like because I have these skills, it's just a safe place to grow, and it's a comfortable and just great foundation. I love that I'm starting this way.
Yeah. I think I'm a little envious. Probably some listeners are too, right? That you're a newlywed and already you have all this great information and training and coaching and support to help make your marriage amazing, which, and I can tell by the meow sounds, right? That is a really good indication of emotional safety because that's what newlyweds do, right? That's what lovers do is you're silly together.
Yeah.
And that's fun. And that's part of what makes being married so worthwhile.
Mhm.
So I give you all the credit for creating that playful environment,
Thank
Magenta. That's
you.
really, really great. What is your tip to a woman who says he just doesn't pay any attention to me? He won't text me. I told him he needs to text me, but he won't. She wants what you have now, where he just wants to be with her all the time, and he talks to her so much she almost thinks he's talking too much, right? She, careful what you wish for, but she wants what you have, and she wants him to meow at her. What's your tip for her about how to create that?
I would really just say to take care of yourself. Your husband just wants you to be happy. I mean, my husband, he tells me that all the time. I just want you to be happy. And when you take care of yourself, when you do things that you love and you're happy, your husband notices you more. He'll want to be around that energy because he goes through struggles too. He has things in his life that he is dealing with. But if you're a safe and happy place to be, he'll want to be there and he'll want to talk to you and get some of that energy and that love.
Wow. So wisely said. I'm like, out of the mouths of babes here we have. That is so wise. So I love that. What do you think you would say to yourself if you could go back in time and talk to Magenta before and tell her what you know now? What would it be?
Oh, I would just tell her to stop worrying about him. He's a very capable man and he is just amazing, taking care of himself and me and our family, and just stop worrying about him. Stop being so controlling and just think about what makes me happy and what will, empower me and help me be a better wife and mom and all my other roles and things. Just think about what I can be doing, what I can be, doing with myself to make me better and happier.
What kinds of things do you do to make yourself better and happier?
I always call my mom. That's probably my first thing. She'll ask me if I want her to be a coach or a mom. And sometimes it changes, I want different things.
Oh,
But I love to read romances, books, and things. I love to play with my son. I'm getting into cooking new things, trying new recipes. I just got into embroidery. That's been fun. Just trying new skills. I feel like I never would have had the time to do these kind of things, but really the time comes when you take care of yourself. When you're taken care of, when you're happy, everything goes smoothly. So you have a lot more time because you're not dealing with conflicts and tension, like when everybody's happy, everybody is happy and you can do a lot more things together or get new talents and skills. And so it's been really exciting to think about those kind of things and actually feel like I have the time and space for all of that.
yeah, especially as a new mom with a little tiny person, right? I think sometimes that's feels like a really challenging time to
Yeah.
get to do all that embroidery and trying new recipes and those romance novels and things like that. But it sounds like how are you able to work all that in?
Well, since my husband wants to be around me more and wants to be home more, he takes care of our son for me a lot of times. I'll tell him I just need a 10-minute break. I've been home with him all day. Could you just take him for 10 minutes, while I go have some time for myself? And even recently, he started waking up with our son so I can sleep in. And that's been amazing. I think he takes care of him most mornings now so I can sleep in because he knows I love that. And he just wants to be with us more. And it's so much happier at home. And I've been able to just learn how to do things with a little one. And it's exciting. When I was a new mom, I would kind of be a martyr and like, oh, I have to take care of my son. But now it's more exciting. I love playing with him and seeing him learn and grow. And I have the space to do that too. I can learn and grow and do what I want as well.
I love it. Magenta, this is great. I'm impressed with all that you've done and all your humility and accountability that it took to go from like being able to say those words, I hear you, and letting him drive your car, right? It wasn't nothing. It takes some courage. Yeah. And I just love the beautiful family that you've created.
Thank you.
I give you all the credit for that. So thank you so much for sharing the details with us and on the mission to end world divorce. Somebody's going to hear and be inspired and motivated, who's maybe a newlywed too, about what she can do.
I hope so.
Oh, I know so. Thank you. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice I find most dopey this week was sent to me by one of the coaches who ran across a post about the reasons your husband might stop doing special things for you. So here's another shout out to the coach who contributed to the worst relationship advice this week again. Thank you for sending it my way. It's nice to know I'm not the only one who gets nauseated at this stuff. The article says that the biggest reason why men stop being romantic is that he has grown extremely comfortable in your relationship and he's simply taking the easy way out because he can. He knows you're not going to leave him just because he's not being romantic. So instead of going through all the trouble of planning and coming up with some romantic idea, he's just going to sit on the couch and watch some TV instead. So men are lazy. They only do the minimum. They'll neglect you if they can get away with it. And it's pretty depressing because it's also saying there's nothing you can do about it when your marriage loses the romance because it's his fault. He's got a character defect of laziness. And with advice like this, who needs male bashing, right? But it's not my experience that all husbands stop being romantic because they're lazy. I see some other subtle forces at work, and they're easy to overlook if you're convinced that this Looney Tunes advice is the truth. It certainly doesn't match my experience in my marriage and the experiences I hear about from my students either. What can stop a husband from being romantic, thoughtful, and giving you sweet surprises, in my experience, is that he doesn't feel like he can succeed in making you happy. He bought you a present, but you didn't like it. You took it back to the store. He planned a surprise party for your birthday, but you said he didn't invite the people you wanted to have there. He took you to a fancy restaurant, but you said the service was not very good. Oh, wait. This is me I'm thinking of. Those are things I did. And then I wondered why he didn't do anything romantic anymore. It wasn't laziness. It was logic. I taught him that he couldn't please me because I wasn't pleasable. So he stopped trying, like anybody would. When we were falling in love, I was very pleasable, and he loved that because he could make me smile and gush because he brought me flowers from the grocery store. But when I stopped receiving, he couldn't succeed. Fortunately, when I learned a thing or two about a thing or two, he started making romantic gestures again, like getting me a diamond ring and earrings and flowers and sushi dinners. It's not just me. I see this kind of thing with my students all the time. If he knows you're pleasable, your man will try to please you. And if you're not pleasable and you don't realize it, you might think it's all his fault that he never does anything special for you anymore. And for that reason, this advice, where the biggest reason why men stop being romantic is that he has grown extremely comfortable in your relationship and he's simply taking the easy way out because he can, is the very worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share about how to have your best relationship. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that my favorite place in the whole world is Corona del Mar, which translated from Spanish, I think means light beer of the sea.